Hello, Pierpaolo. I hope I pronounced that at least decently. Could you please give an introduction about yourself?
Yes, pleasure to be here. My name is Pierpaolo. I'm from Italy, and I joined the real world about 2 years ago, right as we started with our own custom application. And the impact it's had since then has been truly life changing, and I'm honored to be here.
Okay, amazing. Give a bit of a background. What were you doing before you joined, and then what actually led to you joining?
Yeah, so before I joined, I mean, I was always a bit entrepreneurial. I understood, that I want to chase, freedom financially and location wise. So that's always been an ambition of mine since I was a teenager. And for the most part, that's the what I was doing in life, and trying to start businesses and go through different hustles. And when I came across the real world, I was quite blown away because I realized, like, wow, there's so much value being taught here, like all the different ways to make money, and this is exactly what I've been trying to do by myself without really any guidance, just based on Google, YouTube videos, whatever. And when I realized there's a community dedicated to helping you achieve this stuff, and you have the professors there guiding you through all the steps of the way, then that clicked with me, and I had to try it out.
Yep. And which campuses did you get into when you joined?
So originally, I joined what was called the Freelancing campus, and it's now called the Social Media and Client Acquisition campus. Because when I first joined, I kind of looked across the board. I see what are the options. I evaluated what are my skills, and at being a software engineer, I noted that down and realized, okay, well, this is a pretty valuable skill in the marketplace. How can I, bring this skill to the marketplace and start making money um, through my own actions rather than a job or anything like that. And so that's kind of a list I went through.
Yep. So you said earlier that you were entrepreneurial, so you had gone through some YouTube videos, maybe some trying to find lessons online. So, what was the difference there between actually the lessons in the social media and client acquisition campus and implementing them compared to what you had previously seen online?
Right. So joining the real world, you just get action steps. You have the professor guiding you every single day. They have live streams where you can ask questions live, tailored to your situation, and get feedback. It's also you have a lot of accountability, so you know exactly what you need to do. And if you work off your checklist and check everything off that you need to do every single day over a long enough time span, you will start to achieve your milestones. And when you look at like YouTube videos or all that's out there, I mean, it's all a lot of it is just clickbait, and they try to just keep you in for the views. But at the end of the day, you're not really gonna enforced to take any action, and you just end up, in this loop of searching for motivation and but never taking action.
Yep. Okay, so then you actually implement the lessons from the real world. What was it like actually trying to acquire clients for what you do?
Well, it started off quite rough because I never, tried to go out in the marketplace and start outreaching and do sales pitches and get on closing calls. So that was quite new for me. And what I went through was just different steps of testing different mediums. So I started DMing people on Instagram. I sent hundreds of DMs to sell, for example, website services, landing pages, click funnels, that sort of thing. And but the key to what I've to the success I've experienced was testing different channels. And so I went from Instagram to all the way to in-person networking, and I've tried a lot of things that didn't work, and some worked, and what has worked very well.
Go a bit more in depth on that then. So, how many, uh, let's say, outreaches did you need to do before you actually landed your first client? And what was the process of landing that first client?
Man, so the outreaches part, I genuinely lost count because it was quite a few. But I landed my first client while outreaching to startups that are based in the Netherlands, and needed, let's say, some sales channels through their website. So think of like ClickFunnels and that sort of thing. And that was my first paying client that I found through just, let's say, scraping the web for startups in that met my criteria.
And then actually landing them, did you get on a call or what did you do? And what did you pitch as a service?
Yeah, so the first client ran a cold email outreach, and I followed up 2 days after with a phone call. And on the phone call, we quite clicked, and they were interested in what I was offering. And so from there on, we got on a closing call where we discussed how we move forward, what the quote will be, and that's kind of how I closed them.
And what was your very first quote for your online client?
My very first quote is quite laughable. It was 600 euros. This was after maybe 8 months of being in the real world, and like uh, s- well, 2 months of taking it seriously. So that was my first paying client, and from there on, it honestly went quite exponential. Once you do it once, uh, you get that belief in yourself, and it kind of snowballs from there.
Mhm. So you say laughable, but still fairly substantial, 600. How did you end up scaling from there? Did you leverage that first client as a testimonial, or did you not do any kind of testimonial and you just continued doing more outreach? What was the process there to actually scale after?
So you're right. I did use them as a testimonial for future clients, but the main thing that changed was the belief in yourself, and that if you stick to the process, you can make it happen. And so, literally, I mean, it must have taken me 2 months of outreaching and testing different things to get the first client. And within the next 2 weeks, I actually landed another client before the money from my first invoice even came to my bank account. So that was quite fun.
And how did you scale your pricing as you got more confidence and got more clients? And did the services you were offering evolve as well, or has it been the same throughout?
Yes, so the services did evolve, and that was the next thing I was testing, because um, being a software engineer, I realized, look, I could sell websites, but I'm also very competent in building web apps and full stack applications. So I started, after getting my first two or three sort of, website kind of clients, lower end clients, I started branching out into how can I land bigger projects that are more suiting to my skill set. And from there, that's when I realized, okay, I need to change my medium of outreaching from something like spraying and praying on Instagram DMs to maybe something more targeted. So I started attending in-person networking events, which I learned from Arno in the business campus. And from there, I networked myself with multiple people, and that was actually where I landed my two biggest clients of the year.
And again, is that something you can give a bit more detail on for those two biggest clients?
Yeah, absolutely. What kind
So
of
when I say detail, I mean what did you do for them? How much did you charge? And anything else, like in terms of details.
Yeah, so the first client was actually a retainer. Like, first bigger client was a retainer that I landed through networking out of my circle, people that through people of people via, let's say. And it was a software startup, and they were building a SaaS, software as a service tool, and they needed more firing power on the development of this tool, because the owner, he was a bit of a technical person, but of course, running a business, um, there's a lot that comes to it, in terms of sales. So his time wasn't he wasn't able to invest as much time in the technical part. So that's where I was able to close him on, let's say, that pain point was what I was more driving home. And that client was about 2,500 a month, which was quite substantial, because now I'm looking at my income from my business and my income from my job, and I'm like, wow, okay, this is starting to slowly outpace my job.
So two things there. I think you only mentioned one of those clients, and you said there were two. So then, what was the second client? And did you actually end up quitting your job then at some point?
Yes, I did eventually quit my job after the second big client, which was actually an enterprising company here in the Netherlands, and they needed a energy dashboard built for their to monitor their consumption of energies in all their different venues. They had like physical stores and needed to monitor that, and through, let's say, networking in circles that are of business owners, I was able to get in touch and with the owner of this company and evaluate like what are your needs, what are your pain points. And this happened quite informally, which was interesting. So kind of the initial outreach was informal and the discovery call was informal, and then we kind of hopped on a closing call a week after that.
Mhm.
And this client was um, I would say the biggest one of last year, or when I started out, which this was my first five-figure client. At the time, it was like 10,000 a month for a 4-month project.
Mhm. Amazing. So you went from your first client at 600 euros or dollars to a 10,000 a month client.
Yes.
Yeah, very substantial. Okay. And what's totally fun then that you can relate to the real world if you were to combine all the projects you've done so far?
From last year, it's been about 52,000 after tax. And as a cumulative total, I would believe 66,000 euros.
So yeah, for how old are you?
Turned 23.
So yeah, 66,000 for a 23-year-old. Amazing.
Yes.
But did you decide not to go to university? And
Well,
if
the
so,
funny
why?
thing is, I studied computer science for a very brief window until I decided to drop out, because at
Mhm.
that point I was kind of, like I mentioned, I've always been entrepreneurial and I always had a drive to learn more and push myself. So I was always outside of school learning about new things, and that's where my, let's say, passion for software engineering came to be. I was learning how to program computers from a young age, and by the time I got to university I realized, like, wow, this is so slow. Everything they're teaching me is already picked up on quite a while ago teaching myself. So I decided to let's say this was the biggest risk at the time I took in life, and I decided to drop out and just go my own ways. And um, yeah, that what turned out to be a pretty good decision.
Indeed. And you said you quit your, I guess I can call it 9 to 5. I don't know what to call it. After the 10,000 a month client, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
At that point, everything was starting to snowball. I was landing clients quite consistently. So from then on, I decided, let's take another big risk in life, just like I did with dropping out. And just like that decision as well, at the time, it's scary, but that worked out perfectly too.
And what do your parents think about what you're doing and about both decisions for to drop out of university and then to quit your job?
Yeah, so not gonna lie, my mother took that pretty hard, dropping out of university. But she sees my work ethic. She knows I've always been about it, and so at first she wasn't a big fan of it. But I told her, "Hey, listen, let's try this out for a year, 2 years. Let's see how far I get, and the option to go back is always there. So, is it really a risk or just something you need to try?" Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. And you said you were entrepreneurial from a younger age. Was there something that caused that, or is it just how you were as a person?
I think it was somewhat how I am as a person, but also as I started growing up, I realized how the world really is working, and I looked at the people living kind of the lifestyle I would want to live, and I looked at them and I see, what do they all have in common? And that's that they're all running a business, they're all um, running some kind of endeavor where none of them really have like a 9 to 5. So that was kind of an eye opener. I'm like, okay, maybe the current path I'm on of studying for computer science and getting a good paying job and all that, I'm like, maybe that's not the optimal path to take. So then I started researching, like about business, how money works, and all that.
And what kind of an impact has Tate had on you with the lessons you've listened to?
Honestly, the a huge impact, more than I can describe. I mean, uh, the lessons he brings forth. Well, sorry, my mind is going a bit blank here.
Whether
uh,
it's from podcasts or anything you've listened to, it doesn't have to be specific lessons, but just Tate in general, what kind of an impact has he had?
Yeah, so the impact Tate has had on me has been quite massive. I mean, you see all these online influencers, preaching and talking, but no one is actually walking the walk. So when I first came across Tate, it was, of course, as many others, his funny persona that first spoke to me, and it made me laugh. But the more his clips started showing up on my timeline, I'm like, you know what, this person is really speaking some things that everybody is thinking. And at the time, it was during Corona time, and of course I thought, the masks and the vaccines, this is all bullshit. Everyone's getting canceled for saying so. And uh, and Tate was pushing against this narrative, and I thought, like, you know this is exactly what we need. And the things he preaches about masculinity and going to the gym and pursuing the hard work, that is what resonated with me a lot.
Uh, hmm. Is there any more to add there? Just wondering. If not, we'll continue. So, preaching hard work, changed life, could see free thinker. Um, I don't know. I guess, was there any more to add, or do you want to
uh,
continue?
I'm not sure. I didn't really think about that question before the meeting. My bad.
Okay, 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 cool. Then uh, I'm assuming you're also in the heroes here, right? So you would have listened to Luke's lesson. So would you have anything to say for how those have impacted you over the year?
Absolutely. I think Luke's lessons have had such a profound impact on me, because before, you, of course, know what work needs to be done. You know how to get clients, which is through outreaching. Um, but once you hear Luke and how he works and what he preaches, essentially, you almost get zero excuses for not doing the work. And um, I think that's the big difference of also the community of TRW, is you not only get the education, but you also get this sort of community, almost like brotherhood, where everybody's held accountable. And well, people are showing up here every day. Everybody's putting in their work. Why shouldn't I be doing that too, right? This is kind of your duty within the school and to yourself.
Yep. Okay, very cool. So since you're on this trajectory, what plans do you have for the future? If it's short term, medium term, long term, anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, so right now my main focus is, keeping at the hustle, growing my business, and also something I've once I started making money from my business, I've been also looking into the investing campus to multiply that money. And for me, that has been another huge game changer, let's say, because when you, let's say, look at the money you're earning, and you understand, well, money is just a store of energy, then multiplying that money through investing, you're essentially almost multiplying, your efforts and your, let's almost lifespan, right? So that has been a huge game changer for me as well, within the university. And I think,
Makes sense. Okay, I think I'm good to wrap up with a final question then.
awesome.
So, because of the impact that the real world has had on you, what advice do you have to people who think, what if I get scammed for $50?
Yeah, I hear that often, and I think it's a ridiculous question. I was thinking to myself before this call, what has had the highest ROI in my life? Has it been my gym membership or the real world? And I would have to say, hands down, pick the real world every single time, for one reason only. And it's a simple reason, let me tell you. Within the real world, you not only learn how to make money, and nor do you only learn how to multiply the money you make. On top of that, you also have the fitness campus, which, hear me out, has a calisthenics course, which you could technically do at home. So therefore, you're a membership to the real world. I mean, uh, as an invaluable ROI. You can't measure it in euros or dollars.
Yeah, very well put. Okay, so if people want to find out more about you or contact you, where could they do so?
You can find me on Instagram at Pierpaolo_16.
We'll add that to the description of video. So anyone who's interested, just check in the description. And yeah, Pierre Paolo. I'm not sure how to say that part, but yeah. Thank you for coming on and sharing your story. So you're 23 years old, working as a software engineer, well, freelancing now, got beyond 10,000 a month, which is so many people's dreams. And this is something you're doing online, so you can technically go wherever you want, live wherever you want, do whatever you want. So you have the freedom to do so at such a young age, which again is very rare. And I guess I'm getting a bias towards it now because I hear quite a bit of that because of the interviews. But outside the real world, that's just usually unheard of. Barely anyone has that kind of, I don't know what to call it, privilege because you put in a lot of work for it. But yeah, I don't know any other words for it. So amazing to hear how well you're doing. And thank you for coming on to share it. And I wish you all the best.
That's right. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.